Hi, it's Paul Roy from Profitable Practice Pro, and welcome to the Partnership Advantage podcast. And today I'm going it solo. My guest got called off to New York City to spend some time with a client, and we'll look forward to having her join us at an event in a couple of weeks' time. So today I want to share a little bit about why I'm involved in helping business partnerships. And one of the main reasons is that I've been involved in four, and actually more if you look at family businesses that I was involved with. So, I'm going to share a little bit about my journey. It's exciting. There's some bumps along the way, things that I learned, but things that you also, if you're involved in a business and you've got a partner or you're thinking about going in business and you're going to need a partner, have a listen, and perhaps some of the things that happened to me, you'll be able to escape. So, in my younger years, I loved making money. And when I was 10, 11 years old, I was out mowing lawns, shoveling walks, had a little woodworking business in my teens. I just wanted to go out and earn money and would do whatever it took to make it. And when I graduated from high school, my father looked at me and said, "If you ever think I'm going to help you financially to go to university, you're crazy. You're a business guy. You'll be successful, be able to do whatever you choose to do. Um, Go out and do it." And what happened was, of course, I was from a long line of medical doctors through generations, including my father and brother and uncles, grandfather. And I was the one in the family who was going to end up being a business guy, and as long as you'll hear shortly, as did my brother John. And we chose business. And but I needed to be able to learn how to do business. And if you can believe it, I started out as a bill collector, a roadman for a bill collection agency. And that's how I started in my business journey, collecting past due accounts, which paid dividends for me later back in the days when I had to collect money from my first business. So I did that for a number of years, moving into another firm, industrial lending firm, and went into the loan, becoming a loans officer, and learned the steps to how to trust somebody and put a package together and start loaning money. So that was another step. And I said, well, I better learn how to sell. I'm pretty good at it, but I better go out and learn how to become a better salesperson. And I went into the life insurance business at the young age of 23. And I spent a few years doing that. And then I did enjoy it, but it was B2C. And I missed, pardon me, working with business owners. So I went into the group and health and dental insurance business for a year and a half. And I absolutely loved working with business owners. One summer when I was at a sailing event, a lifelong friend had said to me, Paul, there's a business for sale up the street from my business. You might want to consider buying it. Long story short, 4 months later, we put the package together. And this was my first foray into being a bricks and mortar business owner, but also having the need to have partners. My wife being one who was admin, and it was a business office products stationery business that had a retail side, a gift side, card side, but it also had stationery and office supplies side, which I ended up running. But to make it happen, I needed investors. And my family came in and joined in financing the business. Both my father in law and my father invested in their son and daughter to send us off in our merry way of becoming business owners. And we set that up through them being not participating partners in the business, but preferred shareholders. And when you learn about structuring the business, if you don't know the difference between common shareholders and preferred shareholders and where the responsibilities lie, but that's how we had set it up. And we had built this business to a fabulous business, this is back in 1981, a little $22,000 a month business that in 5 years I built to doing $75,000 a month. And this thing was cooking along. And I had put great people in place. My wife looked after the retail side of the business. And I was going out the door 3, 4 days a week, knocking on doors, building the business. And that's what fueled it. And then the challenges started to show. With the free trade agreement between Canada and the US, it gave an opportunity for the big box stores to come into Canada. And the big box stores were also playing havoc with the smaller office products and stationery stores in both the US and in Canada. And within 2 years, 5,000 businesses like mine, myself included, got wiped out. We went out of business. I even had one acquaintance who committed suicide. He was second generation of his business. That's how it got wiped out. Right about the same time that the small hardware stores, regional hardware stores, got wiped out too. And it was consolidation of the business. I tried to take ownership for how the business failed, but it really wasn't. But here's the kicker, I had to look at my family and at my investors and go, the money's gone. I don't have the money to pay you back. It's over. And I went bankrupt in the town where my grandfather had been mayor, owned the newspaper, and several other businesses. And if you want to talk about a humbling experience, to be president of the business district and go through what I just mentioned to you, was a setback. To be in my mid 30s, broke, and all I had left was my family and my home. So there we go. That was the start. That was my first partnership experience. I went off and ran a large not-for-profit that was doing $12 million a year, and I had 73 employees just to prove that I had the ability to run a business, which I did. But the calling to be an entrepreneur again rang through, and a printing forms business had become available. And this was the type of business that, tractor fed paper with the holes down the side. And we were providing businesses with invoice forms, checks, multiple form checks, prescription labels. It was a wonderful business. And I did business right across the country, connected with software firms. And lo and behold, the invention of the laser printer entered the business. And it turned it on its ear, because it allowed all the other flat printers who didn't have the technology or the ability to print multiple forms were now my competitors and selling at a third the price that I used to sell at. But when we set that business up, my wife again was my partner. She was looking after the administration side. I was outgrowing the businesses, calling on the drugstores and the businesses who were buying these multiple part forms. But I also needed another investment partner, an engineer and sailing friend who would come in to help fund the business and also to help me grow the business. But 2 short years later, the technology shift came in. And as I mentioned earlier, the laser printers came in. But I had a silent partner, and you'll learn this when it's time to sell your business or you're looking to buy a business, that often the seller of the business takes back vendor payback or takes back part of the purchase price of the business. So I still owed money to that individual. And I said to myself, I've been down this road before. I don't want to have a slow death. So we made arrangements for the vendor to take the business back, and we walked away. Lesson learned. But it was, an experience. And you've got these business partners, whether they're the vendors who have sold you the business, the people who had loaned you the money. But once again, a partnership that didn't fail. The industry failed. Did some other things over the years that came along, but the next interesting piece is that I went into the human resource business on my own. I didn't do this in a partnership, but it was a business that came out of the dot-com crisis when all of these middle managers and senior managers were being fired when the mergers and acquisitions came in, and they just said, well, we don't need all these middle managers. And I got into business to helping these people find quality work. But it was a business that was miles ahead of its time. And of course, with the dot com and investors, they wanted bottom line money. They didn't want to pay the extra money for quality people to come in and step right in, which would have been the right long term play. But that's life. That's over. That's how it happened. But, things happen. And then I ended up working with my brother in his yacht brokerage business. And that was an interesting experience because my brother, like myself, was a workaholic. And if there was anybody that burned the midnight oil at work, it was my brother John. But I loved the boat business. And I said, this would be fun. I'd be, been on the water all my life. I can go in and, I can sell boats to anybody. And I did. I was extremely successful. And it was at a time when the Canadian dollar, believe it or not, folks, was stronger than the American dollar. And the bulk of the business was being done in the US. But that put stress on the amount of money I could make because commissions would be split four ways. But even through that, I sold more boats than anybody else in Eastern Canada at my time in the business. But it was, when I would take a day off because I had worked 6 days previously, my brother John, bless his heart, would look at me and go, where are you going? And I said, I'm taking the day off. And he had a way of making you feel guilty that the company wasn't making money because you were taking the day off. So call it a partnership, call it a relationship, but I had decided that I would move along. And through that time period, though, a friend had approached me to get involved with him in a yachting marina and marine repair business with also another friend. And here I was, lust into another partnership. And the principal finance individual outside of the bank was also an absentee owner. So it was myself as president of the company and the secretary general manager who ran the back end of the company was also there. And it was an interesting experience trying to feel out who was going to look after what roles. And it was kind of one of these things that was written on the back of a napkin. Paul, you're going to do this. Fred, you're going to do this. Bob, you're going to do this. And that was all well and fine. And it was sort of like jazz music. You made it up as you went along. And coming to find out that it really did need more structure than it had. And my partner, other active partner, was very good at that. But as I learned through this process, that the business wasn't big enough to support three partners. And I had since taken on another role as vice president of a call center to help them grow and take it to a national level. So I sold my shares and got out of the business. But that's, was structured right to be able to get out at the other end. So, off it goes. Then you get along and you go through the process of a role that I took with a call center, thinking I'd be 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years at the most, end up being 7 years. But it was through that process that, as I mentioned in the description of the event today, that because I had, been knocked out and down on my ankles a couple of times in my life and rebuilt myself, people started showing up on my door saying, Paul, you survived, you made it. I'm in trouble. Will you help me? And that's how I ended up getting in to the business coaching and consulting business 10 years ago now. And that, again, I went off on that alone, but lo and behold, through that process, myself and two fellow business coaches, one a successful marketing and senior VP from the food business who had moved into the space, as well as myself, and my other partner, Doug, who had just recently sold his 45 staff accounting firm. And we had built a training company to help accounting firms learn how to become business advisors and move away from being dependent upon compliance work. And that was a wonderful relationship. I ended up being the managing partner, investing most of the time and energy in that, but my partners also contributed. We had a wonderful relationship. We met weekly. We decided who was going to do what, when we were going to, who was going to handle the marketing, how are we going to do our webinars and training, and who's going to actually look after coaching these accounting firms. And it worked fine. The business was reasonably successful. But my other two partners, one of them had a thriving business in terms of teaching other coaches how to be better coaches and went off to doing that full time. And my other partner, Doug, was moved into semi-retirement and said, Paul, I just can't be as active as I want to be. And that's what led me to rolling CPA Business Coach over into Profitable Practice Pro, which was to help accounting firms, professional firms move into becoming advisory firms for their clients, but also for me to go in and help them become entrepreneurs. One of the things that many accounting firm owners struggle with. They're accountants stuck in the world of being accountants, and nobody had taught them how to become entrepreneurs and how to grow their business, how to communicate with clients. And that's what led me to Profitable Practice Pro. Excuse me. So that really is how I got to where it is today, with one more caveat. How did you end up now focusing not just on accounting firms, but partnerships? And because of all of the partnerships that I'd been through, all of the companies that I had been coaching and helping with, and I saw the need and the struggles that business partners were going through, establishing what their boundaries were, who was in charge of what, getting it out on the table, um, and that saying little or nothing to keep the peace eventually catches up with you. And that's where a lot of my focus is today, both with accounting firm partnership owners, professional firm owners, founders and co-founders, on becoming better partners. And when you have great partners, the balance sheet becomes great too. So that's what it is. That's my journey. Having been wiped out once, down on my knees another time, and what it taught me, what I needed to do to be able to help my clients. So that's my story. If I can be of any help, I'll post a link in the comment section below, or you can find me on this platform through LinkedIn. Let's have a conversation, and we'll help you get past what you're struggling with in your partnership, and we'll help you build a business that at some point somebody wants to buy. Thanks so much. Have a great day.